So a few days I made a video, right? And I had such a hard time processing everything that's been happening. Because a couple weeks ago we talked about Ahmaud Arbery, right? For our class as part of, the current events to keep you up to date with what's happening. And it really meant a lot, that you knew his story and what had happened. And I just didn't expect something to happen just literally days later with George Floyd. I'm going to still show the video, but I am going to include a new part of the video, something that we all need to just really take a moment, think about. It's going to be 8 minutes and 46 seconds long. If you want to watch it, it's just going to be a moment of silence. 8 minutes and 46 seconds later. You could also skip it if you want. But honestly, I really think that you should be able to see what that is. It's devastated me, honestly. The cruelty to any human being, much less an an African American man. What did he do? What did he do? And it's just devastated me. And I worry for you guys all the time. I pray for you. And I miss you. And I really hope that every single day you are safe. And here we go.
And people really of all races representing the diversity of the city who have come out today in order to honor his life. And I spoke with Trey the Truth just a little while ago. He is the Houston rapper who helped to organize this event. And he said that he just really wanted to show the family love and give them this opportunity to gather with the folks of the city before they head off to get the body and to begin the events that are going to take place over the next couple of days with the service in Minnesota and in North Carolina, and then where he'll return here to Houston to be buried. And you mentioned the idea that these are meant to be peaceful protests, and that is certainly what we're hearing. The mayor is here. He has tweeted that out. The police chief is here. There are a number of pastors and religious leaders, including Joel Osteen, who pastors the largest church in the country. And the message here really is peace. Trey the Truth mentioned that he had heard that people were leaving bricks on different corners, and he told them there will be none of that. If we see that, we're going to stand against them, is what Trey the Truth said. He really wants to ensure that this protest remains peaceful and is in honor of the family and of George Floyd's life.
Priscilla Thompson, it's an unbelievable scene unfolding behind you. Thank you for bringing it to us and to our viewers. Thank you so much. Coming up, American democracy is now under assault. Dateline White House, next.
Every day you're eating acidic foods, you're constantly weakening that enamel structure. Pro-enamel repair allows more minerals to penetrate deep into the enamel layer, and it repairs it. It is pretty phenomenal.
Dear fellow business leaders and technologists, I see all the amazing things you have been doing. You're transforming business models, then virtualizing workforces overnight, because so much of that relies on financing.
A literal and figurative barrier between the president and the country he ostensibly leads as protesters gather there for a fifth straight day. Trump stunt last night using the military to clear peaceful protesters gathered outside the White House so he could stage a photo op is sending reverberations around the world today. Trump's willingness to trample the rights of peaceful protesters to try to erase the image of himself as fearful and taking shelter in the basement of his home has been viewed as an ominous sign of his willingness to subvert democracy, to grasp for power at what many view as a new low of his presidency. Katie Rogers writes in the New York Times of the surreal scene, quote, people who gathered outside the White House to protest police brutality spent Monday waving signs and screaming for justice. They watched as police officers and National Guard units flooded Lafayette Square, delivering on a threat made by President Trump. And just before the city's 7 p.m. curfew went into effect, they were hit with flashbang explosions and doused with tear gas. It was because the president, who spent part of the weekend in a secure bunker as protests roiled, wanted to have his picture taken holding a Bible at a battered church just beyond the gates. The short walk was turned into a political message by the White House within hours, erasing any doubt of its purpose. The Washington Post reports today on the after-action assessment of the president's caper. Quote, when Trump had returned safely to the White House less than an hour later, the verdict seemed clear. The president had staged an elaborate photo op, using a Bible awkwardly held aloft as a prop, and a historic church that has long welcomed presidents and their families as a backdrop. Aides for Vice President Joe Biden say today that the contrast between Trump and Biden is nothing less than good versus evil. Biden today addressing the nation from Philadelphia's town hall.
When peaceful protesters dispersed in order for a president from the doorstep of the people's house, the White House, using tear gas and flash grenades in order to stage a photo op in one of the most historic churches in the country, or at least in Washington, D.C. We can be forgiven for believing the president's more interested in power than in principle. More interested in serving the passions of his base than the needs of the people in his care. For that's what the presidency is. The duty to care. To care for all of us. Not just those who vote for us, but all of us. Not just our donors, but all of us.
The anger and grief cracked open by the killing of George Floyd is still fueling demonstrations across our country, like this one in Houston, where Floyd lived for much of his life. Today's protests come after another night of large ones, some turning violent, and the ones in New York happening alongside looting on some of New York's most prominent shopping districts. The president's botched response to American unrest over police brutality in our country is where we start today. Associated Press White House reporter Jonathan Lemire's back, plus Pulitzer Prize-winning Washington Post columnist Eugene Robinson and former Democratic Senator Claire McCaskill. I want to get to all the big stuff. What looks like an undemocratic grasp to hold on to power. I want to get to the reaction from other world leaders, which is really a lot like all of our speechlessness. I want to get to the raw emotion, which can't be captured or really pushed back against. But I want to start, Claire McCaskill, with just as a former White House staffer, as someone who worked for a president, the president looked like a dope. The president stood in the Rose Garden, talked about standing for peaceful protesters while his own government was literally gassing them. And then he makes this moronic walk under heavy military protection and waves around a Bible as though it's something he has never seen or touched before. I mean, just talk about how small Donald Trump looks today.
You know, I am so sad and angry and full of emotion about what our country is going through right now. And the nerve of this man and the people around him thinking it was a good idea to use police on horses and tear gas and flashbangs to move a peaceful crowd so he could go out there and do something that is at its essence so phony. And what's most insulting about it, I think, Nicole, is that he actually thinks that Americans believe that he is somehow a Christian. He's never read the Bible. He doesn't know what's in it. He hasn't been somebody who has attended church as president of the United States. He's never role modeled Christian behavior. He doesn't know the Beatitudes Beatitudes and the thing the Bible teaches about the least among us, and that we care about them the most. And so for him to use this Bible, what I can't get is people around him who should have stopped him and said, this won't work. The people out there that you need to vote for you that aren't for you now, they're not going to buy what you're selling. You slept with a porn star when your wife had just had a baby, and you said in the campaign you never asked for forgiveness from God. Oh my Lord. Pardon me to use the words that I'm saying right now, but I'm at a loss. I just am lost.
Eugene, I hear you chuckling. We are staring at images that are totally beyond Donald Trump's control. Thousands of people on the streets of New York City. Moments ago, we had a live report. Thousands of people gathered on the streets of Houston. Donald Trump has lost the thread on this country. This country is having a conversation about grief and rage about the way black men and women, in some cases boys and girls, are treated by the police. And Donald Trump is throwing tear gas at peaceful protesters and not even trying to dive into the stream that is coursing through this country.
Yes, President Trump has a way of making everything worse, and he's certainly doing it today, and did it yesterday, and I can't,
Hey everyone, how are you guys doing? As you can see, I'm in a new location. Well, it's actually been my favorite location. Some of you may recognize this as Keppel Park, one of my favorite places. You can hear the nice doggos having really important discussions about the situation that's going on in America. As you can hear, they're having a very spirited discussion. And I wanted to begin with that, actually. It's really hurt me so much to see just what's been happening in the streets. You know, with what happened to George Floyd, it is incredible. It is sad. It is horrifying, and it should never have happened. And, you know, people, as you know, are protesting, as they should, period. But, you know, there are people who are there peacefully, and that's what has to happen, you know. As Dr. Martin Luther King once said, that the measure of a man is not where they stand in comfort and convenience, but where they stand in challenge and controversy. And I think it's really important to see that, because we've seen two kinds of people in these days. We've seen people who actually have a heart and really want to see justice, equality. People want peace. People who want to see racism end. And then we have other people who just want chaos and break windows and set cars on fire and damage everything. And what's the point of that? That is not justice. That's not how it goes. And sadly, it's nothing new. We've seen this over and over and over again. And it coincides with our project that we've been doing these days, especially for this week, because you're re-looking at the 20th century stuff, but you're choosing a different topic. And what you looked at last week was mainly focusing on World War I, World War II. I want you to think of a different topic and relate that back to imperialism. And then next week, you're actually the other slide this week and next week, I want you to look at 21st century stuff and do the exact same thing related to imperialism. Look at how it and racism are intertwined, and you know how it transforms. It's very sad. But I really want you to also to start reflecting on the project. What have you learned from it? Why did I give you this project? And it wasn't as busy work to keep you, doing something over these past few weeks. No, there's an actual reason. I've had this plan since September. And I think that we'll finish strong. I miss you guys, and I worry about you, and I really want you to stay safe. Hopefully you are. Peace. So what does that quote from Martin Luther King mean? It means that we really can be our best. We can always be better. In the hardest moments, we know who we are, right? Some people will defend others. Some people will be peaceful and call out, the injustice of others. But there are other people who are cowardly, people who take advantage of the situation, break windows, and just cause chaos all over, burn cars. That is not justice. And it shows a very poor sense of character in whoever does that. It saddened me to see that actually has been happening here in Detroit. That people who aren't from Detroit, they're clearly not from Detroit. They're only here to cause destruction, to cause pain and sadness. And that's not what the city is about. It's not who you are about. Don't give in to that. If you do speak out, speak out. But please be responsible when you do this. All right? It's been quite a week. As I said, stay safe.